All right, good morning, everyone. Hope you guys hear me. Type 1 if you can hear me all right. So I'm going to make sure before I get too in the weeds on all the details here. Hope you guys are well. I'm Wave Meteorologist Brian Good. Welcome to this special update on the alert day status on this Tuesday, as we're already done with an active radar. But what does that mean as we into this afternoon? Where do we stand on all the elements we talked about yesterday? All right, see everybody is got the ones in there. A lot of folks in. All right, so here's what we're going to do. It's always the case. All right, we'll take this one step at a time, and a little different today. I'm going to touch base on a couple of the behind the scenes look at some of the data we're getting and show you guys some of the things that I've noticed, some of the things that could still work in our favor, some that could obviously work against us. It's kind of mixed feelings today. It's not as clear cut of a scenario that we had on Friday. Friday was easier and alarming at the same time because we had everything stacked out in a 1, 2, 3 kind of phase, and everything was lining up nicely. But unfortunately, that led to the reality of the severe weather. Today, we see a potential of what the system can do, but it's not a clear-cut 1, 2, 3. It's very messy. So there is still some wiggle room here, but just because the potential of the system, the way it's stacked up, we got to just be on guard. And the good news is we don't have to be on guard until midnight, 2 o'clock in the morning. I would say for at least the next 12 hours will be the core of the event. Much of this, again, will be daylight that we'll be able to track it, which is a little easier, too, I'm sure, on our nerves. When you're able to see what's going on, too, before it hits you, it's a little easier to handle than when it's in the darkness of night and the power goes out and you just don't know what's going on. That's when it gets scary, as a lot of the folks realized there on Friday night with that system that rolled on top through the area. All right, so as always, I'm sure you guys are going to have questions. Some of the deputy weather forecasters we have deputized in our chat here will be able to help you out if there's something I miss. But hopefully I'll be able to catch it, so just be patient with me as we move along. So let's start with the current setup. Let's begin with something easy, and that is the SkyTrak camera. All right. Yes, I saw your comments. Yes, I heard it as well. That was probably one of the loudest claps of thunder, and it's actually about 3, I believe, in a row that took place. That I'm not overly terrified of lightning. I think it's wild, but only when I'm able to see it coming. I know what's about to happen. I enjoy watching a lightning show. But when you're not expecting it, as it was this morning, about to walk out the door, and it just hits, that's when it just shakes everything. Your heart drops. You start sweating. You're like, oh no, did that just hit me or not? You start getting nervous, right? It was that kind of a bolt this morning. So I'm sure we all felt that. And for some of you are probably still asleep, which is even worse. We get an early morning wake up call like that. Nothing severe this morning, but yeah, very, very loud. Typical for what we call elevated thunderstorms. They tend to be a little louder. Sound travels a little further. On mornings, we have inversions like that. So you get that rolling thunder too after it's over with. So it adds more to that creepy vibe there. Okay, I'll stop rambling. You see we're cloudy right now. That's good, right? Let's hold on to that. Temperatures, wow, quite the difference here. This is another factor that's going to be important. A lot of this is wind direction as well, because Louisville, last check, I think we're still at about an east wind coming in. So the warm front is trying to pass through the area. Certainly has for those of you in E-Town, Marion County down into Columbia. You guys are in the 70s. North Vernon and Madison's got the parka on right now because they're like, whoa, it's freezing up here, 55. Being a little dramatic, but you get the idea. That's a big difference, though. 20-degree spread from one side of wave country to the other. It's obvious, and boundary is moving through the area. This is why the thunderstorms are elevated as they move into Louisville. Cold air or cool air in general is heavier, likes to hug close to the ground. So the warmer air and the thunderstorms go over that. So the bases of them start to rise and kind of slide over that cooler air. Prevents us from having a big issue on severe weather, but again, still makes it noisy. Where you got warm layers at the ground level, that's where they become what we call more rooted. And these moving into southern Kentucky certainly have the best potential for the morning half here to be more rooted. And therefore, they can allow all the severe elements to reach the ground. And that's the reason why we're watching our southern counties first. But the warm front is on the move. It's not stuck in this position. It is moving towards Cincinnati. So we will all see this warmer air envelop the area. We will all have that potential for a thunderstorm to be rooted and therefore produce severe elements. It's just right now, the viewing area is split. 65 officially is the number right now into Louisville. So let's get right into the radar. There's the morning round of thunderstorms that move through. Most of them popped right over Jefferson County over that cooler layer and now moved over into Cincinnati at the moment. A lot of clouds. Again, love seeing that. This is the wave that a lot of high-res models do good on picking out this wave. But the problem that I've noticed is that the modeling is running just too slow compared to the reality. Now, that leads us to a couple of issues here. Will that mean that these will be moving into that warmer layer? Yes, it's in the 70s in central Kentucky and south central Kentucky especially. But is it enough heating without full sun? Therefore, with this first round then struggle? Possibly. But on the flip of the coin, playing devil's advocate, it also means this first round will get out of here faster. Therefore, when we break back out into sun again this afternoon, it will happen earlier than what was expected, and we would have more time heating up area-wide, and therefore the severe risk for the second round would go up. So again, mixed feelings here. The perfect balance of all this with everything be off, timing just enough to where both rounds are affected and tamer. But unfortunately, it looks like one may end up powering over the other. But we have to worry about the second one in a moment. We got to focus on what is happening first, because I don't like seeing 70s in our southern counties when this is moving in. So this is something we'll have to watch carefully as it moves into an environment, at least dynamics-wise, will be destabilizing. Yes, the sun would make it worse, but in this case, you really don't need the sun fully here because the warm front is still in that region. So you could still get some severe weather as that moves over our southern tier. I'll come back around to this in a second, I promise. Let me take you into a closer view into Louisville. They've been regenerating over Louisville several times here in pockets. Again, nothing severe. Another one trying to form not far from the western side of Shepherdsville, heading to the north. Here's a wider view. See a tornado warning out. That's in southwest Tennessee, east of Memphis. That's where we had that tornado watch this morning. It was roughly right through here. They let that go early as this particular round, which was the leftovers of what happened in Oklahoma last night, fizzled out. But now we got to see how much. This has got a sharp angle to it, so it is going to be feeding northeast here. So it does have a narrow window to do anything on powering up. But again, it's got a little bit of time to work with. And then this afternoon, here's this afternoon's window right here, where we got that partly cloudy sky. We'll see how that will hold, because the actual front, you can see the low pressure easily, Kansas City, right? The cold front itself is roughly like this right now to the southwest of us. So there's still a decent window that we have to get through before we're completely out of the woods. So let's look at the fuel side of things. There is fuel building up. I showed you those 70s that are showing up in central Kentucky. Again, building north into Louisville. Louisville, in fact, should see a jump from mid-60s probably into low 70s in the next 30 minutes or so. Even for those of you in Fern Creek and Shepherdsville, you should have noticed even a difference walking outside in the past 30 minutes compared to earlier this morning as that warm front is moving in. But officially at the airport, look at the banner at the top there. It says east at 7. Very soon, we'll see that shift to southeast wind and then south. And that's where we get into problems. Right now, east wind is not a bad thing, but it's changing and shifting around. All right, the fuel has been exhausted to the west of us where the band of thunderstorms have moved through, again, building up ahead of it. Once this passes by, there's the recovery zone, how much of this will recover for the afternoon round. Looking at your rotation signature, we can actually pick up on that on the modeling, at least the ability for storms to rotate. It doesn't always mean tornadoes, by the way, just the stronger winds that rotate can produce damaging winds, large hail, and yes, sometimes even tornadoes. But it's the strong rotation in general of a thunderstorm that allows for severe elements in general to start to show up. And right now that signal is relatively weak in central Kentucky, as you would expect it this early in the day. A little higher down to the south, and that's where, in fact, the tornado warning is, right where those values start to go up in northern areas of Mississippi. But we're not seeing that spike yet into central Kentucky, thank goodness. Let me show you the outlook from the Storm Prediction Center. This came out at 8:30 this morning. Now, they made an adjustment, obviously, last night this morning to bring it all the way up to I-64 from the parkways. For the enhanced risk, slight risk everywhere else. We can easily see where we've got the warm sector, but you almost can tell where the warm front boundary is going to be today in general. I mean, actually, there'll be a little more here later, but you can see that it's influenced by its changing position, which is where the slight risk is a little more of a factor there. Let's break this down, though, as they always can do in the short range. So a closer view. Louisville South, don't get too caught up on these outlooks this point in the day. I think someone said, I'm surprised there's no moderate risk. If we had a lot of sun, it may very well be a moderate risk, but it is a messy setup today. So right now it stands at enhanced. Could it go up higher? It could, but would it make any difference on what our plan of action is going to be today and your plan of action should be today? No, it would not make a difference if it was a enhanced, a moderate, or even if it was back down to a slight area wide. Your plans should not change today. It's still the same setup where severe weather is possible. And you just got to be ready just in case. But let's break it down into category. Tornado potential. The hatched area was trimmed slightly, especially around areas around Somerset and London, Kentucky, slightly trimmed. Still, though, south of the parkways for anything that could get to that EF2 or stronger potential. Again, weather doesn't follow maps. This is just potential you're looking at. But these are hand-drawn from the Storm Prediction Center. And that risk does drop off the more north you go. Now, SPC did note that there was some potential that they would have to increase these categories and even perhaps bring it up a little more north. And the reason for that, as I'll show you in a second, is the shear along where that warm front boundary is actually stronger than it is into southern Kentucky. But the fuel is displaced a little higher in southern Kentucky. They're not completely lined up on top of each other. If they were to line up on top of each other, which is possible this afternoon, then that would change the narrative a bit more and probabilities will start to go up. Right now, everything's just displaced enough that's still bad, but it could be worse. But they did note that they're monitoring that, and I agree that that's something you're just going to take hour by hour. Your damaging wind potential is the main reason for the enhanced, to be honest, and that is along and south of parkways for not necessarily a squall line. We call this, you hear this term a lot, a QLCS. Quasi-linear squall line, which is it's a line with a bunch of wiggles. Sometimes it's like the letter S, like in Superman. And anytime you see that shape on the radar, you're going to get damaging winds. You can get even some tornadoes that are embedded in, especially in the first turn of the S. You can get tornadoes developed in that. So this was one of the main reasons, and that is also lining up near and south of the parkways. Your hail potential, it's only really the storms can get a little more cellular. I think that would show up, but right now that threat looks a little tapered, but I think a golf ball size hail for sure could be a risk in some of these cells today. Last time we didn't get as much of the larger hail out of this, but today being a daytime event, that may be the case. We may have more potential for that. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'll tell you what, let me try something a little different here. Hold on. Stand by, and I'm going to try to show you some of the data I was talking about before we get into the modeling of how this is stacking up for the area. If I can find it. I know I loaded it somewhere. Let's see. There it is. Okay. So what we're going to do is look at some of the parameters that we've got, and I hope this translates well on your end there. All right. This is, some of you guys have seen this before. This is the SPC mesoanalysis site. You're like, oh, that's fancy. What this basically is, a very short-term way of looking at all the different, look at all these menus. Oh my goodness, you probably can't read them. Let me take it full screen. I'll be fair to you all, because I can barely read it. So many different parameters to look at. It's overwhelming, right? But this is what's awesome, is sometimes you have so much data to look at, it can be a little too much, but it does help in trying to figure out how things are going to evolve in the short term, all right? Now, I'm not able to draw on this, but if you look at my cursor, that is where Louisville is right there, all right? So hopefully you know where you are in relation to Louisville, north or south or east or west. You can definitely see that low pressure there across Kansas City, the core of the low itself. First off, let's look at moisture, and this is the amount of fuel in the moisture side of things. These numbers are what we call PWatts. You see 1.6 coming right into Louisville, and you get up to about 1.8 around Memphis. This is, we refer to this a lot whenever we talk about the potential for rainfall amounts that could get to 1 to 2 inches per hour. This is kind of where that rate will come from. So if we've got a 1.6 in Louisville right now, that it would be our potential rate in an hour's time if one storm would arrive. Now, they are moving today, so that is a good thing, but still, that's pretty high values there. So it certainly could lead to flash flooding. But more importantly, when you see that deeper moisture, that darker green shade that is showing up, that tells us these are going to be, they got plenty of fuel, and they're going to be very low hanging clouds. The bases of these clouds will be quite low, which increases your tornado threat, especially when they're very low like that, because once they start spinning and say they produce a funnel, they don't have far to go to get to the tree line, and they're on the ground. It's when the bases are high that you can still get a funnel cloud like they usually have in the Rockies or in the plains sometimes. But if the moisture levels are too low, they just spin, and everyone, gets their phone out and puts it on YouTube and shows it in the sky, but it never really makes contact with the ground. That's what's common in very dry air scenarios. For this one, though, this is a classic for us where they're going to be very low hanging. In some cases, they could be rain wrapped. There's so much moisture, which is a problem. Let's look at the shear, because this is where I think you can see where the warm front makes a difference. It's hard to read the values here, but right in around Evansville, that's about 60 knots of shear. And there's the warm front where the lines are real close together. You can see the warm front is right there at an angle from Evansville through Louisville down to about Bardstown. 40 is about the magic number that we go by. We've got 60 showing up west of us. Now, if we were to advance this to this afternoon, say 6 hours from now, notice the 60 is right in that area around Evansville, where the sun may come back out later and enhance the storms once again. 40 right along, this does reset, sorry. 60 again on Evansville, but not as high a value in southern Kentucky or in Tennessee. They're up there at 40 to 45, enough for severe weather, but they are higher to the north. So let's look at the fuel side. And Cape, it shows the Cape right now in southern Kentucky. You guys saw that red that was lighting up on the radar, so that matches right. Where does it go from here? Well, we get into 6 hours from now, and it shows that the storms are east of us, and the sun's out, basically, and Cape is building to over 2,000, maybe up to 2,500 area-wide. So we've got the fuel, and the trend here I've noticed in the HRRR is to try to overlap this a bit more. And as I mentioned before, you don't want to see that overlapping. You want this displaced as much as you can, but when the two elements start lining up, our potential to get severe weather starts to go up for that second round, especially. We can look at tornado potential. Everyone wants to see that. That's your outlook in about 6 hours. Boy, that really almost matches, doesn't it? The SPC outlook of where that 10% and even the hatched area right along and south of the parkways. Obviously, these values are not, they're high. Don't get me wrong. I mean, a 1 may not seem high, but it's high. But they are not as high as what they were on Friday. But they're up there. Your hail potential, something we'll be watching carefully as these storms roll on by. Significant hail especially, something we'll be monitoring. It too shows up just because the sun's out. A lot of fuel. Again, your hail potential, I think, is a little higher today than what we had for Friday. And you couldn't see it on the map. I'll be maybe able to show you when I flip back to the other system in a second. But see where that yellow is? That's some of the higher values. They actually have a hatched area for hail today from the Storm Prediction Center for that zone. So they're agreeing with the idea that the sun's going to come out and these are going to be large cells that are going to pop on the radar back around Evansville in West Kentucky for this afternoon. Okay, enough of that. I just wanted to show you that for a brief moment. I hope that wasn't too boring. I'll come back around to it if I can. But sometimes it's easier to show you guys some of that data so you get an idea of where we stand on trying to analyze and where storms are going to go as we hit through the rest of the day today. Everyone cool on that, or did that confuse you more? Okay, I think everyone's all right. So let me show you that hail potential real quick. That was showing up in that area. Hold on one second. My system didn't like me switching screens. You try to get fancy, and this thing just doesn't want to be fancy with you. Okay, here's that hatched area I talked about. That again for that hail potential that lined up where the sun was coming back out. But I just wanted to show you that the data seems to be lining up with that. All right, let's get into the modeling and then get into timing because that's really what you want to know. So here is the HRRR model. It's done decent, and the newest run actually seems to match what is happening right now. Some of the other high-res data I've looked at is a little off. Again, timing's been a big issue today. The HRRR just now initialized. This is what it's showing for an hour from now. And it's not bad. I mean, it's got a very similar setup with the radar showing now. So that's why I think the HRRR, I think, has got a better handle at the moment on the current situation. And that's step one. If it has the current situation intact in it, you have a little more confidence in what it's going to do later, right? Let's advance it. Here we go, 12 to 1 o'clock. It takes the current batch of rain and where we got those 70s, maybe 80s here soon, and it wants to power them up to what will be the Superman letter S look here. And that's 2 hours away, guys, 2.5. Again, the model will probably run a little slow, so it's probably a little closer to the 11:30, 12 window, to be honest. Will this happen? That's something that's on me to watch and see how this plays out over the next 90 minutes. We know we got the 70s there, and again, the modeling is wanting to get us to 80s. It's the dynamics of the warm front here that is feeding this. There's not a lot of sun to talk about, right? So this would be worse if we had a lot of sun, but I still think it could be enough to get warnings here. So that's my first challenge that I've got on my plate to figure out is how does this evolve between now and 11:30 to say 12:30 or so today. And Louisville, I'm not taking out of the equation only because the warm front is passing through Louisville right now. So I think anywhere where the warm front is and south is the area to watch for this first round for lunch day. It won't last long. Any given location, 30, maybe 40 minutes, and you're already out of the first round. You're done. But if you are, especially along and east of 65. So let me go ahead and draw a box here. This, I think, around Louisville to around E-Town and all the way to the Lexington area. This is the area I think we need to watch between now and lunch, 12, 1 o'clock here. Timing will vary because, again, everything's off a little on the modeling. That's number one. Damaging winds would be an issue here, but you can get hail with this. And there is a torr threats for sure. You can develop on that because they will be more rooted at this point in the day. But it's they're not at least super cellular right now showing up on the data. That's a good thing because then we'd have bigger issues. So I'm thinking right now there'll be a little more of what we call the QLCS or the letter S Superman look today. If you're north and west of that, you may luck out because the warm front dragging its feet into Indiana and even a little further up 71, you may not have to worry about it. But the warm front is in charge. So if the warm front continues to drag its feet for those of you up 71, the better off you're going to be here for this first round. If it starts to accelerate, pay attention to your home thermometer. If you start jumping into the mid to upper 70s, say in Carrollton, then you'll know the warm front has moved by and you need to start paying attention. But I'm thinking right now this is going to be very close to I-64 and south. Okay, that's round one. It moves out. It's advanced this. We get into 2 o'clock. Again, it's probably more like 1 o'clock. It will be toward I-75. Now, here's the crucial point in the day. Will the sun come back out? And according to her, briefly, it does. And enough that we recover back into the upper 70s to near 80 degrees. Now we get into where the shear that was showing up over 60 knots starts to come into play. This is the main event now that is rolling into wave country. And this time it says 7:30. If everything is holding its own right now, being off a bit, this is probably a little closer to 6 p.m. But in general, that's when we need to watch for this move in. Now watch what happens here. It takes the band of thunderstorms that you see developing in southern Kentucky and actually races them northeast into Louisville. This would be a straight line wind event across central Kentucky if we were just talking about the HRRR model only here. That's what it's showing is just a dynamic push of very strong winds that would push surging north up to I-64. Here's the cold front portion. Now, the good news is we're at 9 o'clock at night at this point. Your severe risk starts to diminish because now we're getting into sunset. So I really think this will be the main show at this point, the 6 to 8, 6 to 9 window. And these should be just general thunderstorms with lightning and thunder all the way through midnight. Not as worried about severe weather with that round rolling on by. All right, so let's talk about timing, and I'll get to some of your questions. I'm going to go with a big surge here of thunderstorms between that lunch hour for today, especially along 65. That should happen. I'm going to decrease it down. Tawana started this trend this morning showing how there will be that decrease where the sun comes out, and then we'll ramp it back up as we get into the evening. I still think there's going to be some wiggle room here on that second round on the timing, so bear with us. But it looks to be a 1-2 punch on how this will play out. I'll leave the timing up and get to some of your questions real quick. Well, I'll try to anyway. Hold on 1 second. Okay, now I got you guys up. All right, so you may have to repeat this. Apologize. ZK didn't comprehend what he was saying about Indiana. Indiana is on the edge here for the first round. The second round, everyone's at risk. First round, 64 south. Second round, everyone. It's a simple way I can put it. I can't get more specific on towns than that because the models are, we can't get that specific right now. I can tell you the first round just has a good likelihood to feed on where those 70s are in central Kentucky. Let's see. Tina, has it moved north of its previously predicted area? I'm not sure if which round you're referring to, Tina, so you have to let me know. The first round, not necessarily. Everything's placement-wise seems on track. It's the timing that's a little off. And timing matters because it's going to be more at times of the day where it'll be warmer than it normally would have been on the previous timing scale, if that makes sense. So timing matters, but the elements of placement seem to be on track. Let's see. Enhanced risk today, yes. We'll have another update from SBC at 12:30, but I wouldn't get too caught up on the outlooks now. Just wanted to show you to give you an idea where we stand with them, and where there could be some adjustments. And what they're struggling with is really the second round. How widespread does that end up becoming? But I'm really concerned on the sun coming back out this afternoon. I think this faster timing is not our friend. So I got a feeling that's going to up, especially the straight line wind potential. Hearing you thrice. Okay. Let's see. I'll keep the timing up. So if everyone's asking when is it coming, there's the timing. Those are the time periods we're watching. Right? Dan, yes, that's basically what I've been saying. If it's earlier, then that last round has a chance to be severe. Yes, it's the first round that I think that is going to be a little questionable here. Let me get back to the radar and show. First, let me show you the temperatures again, because that's important to kind of explain what I mean by that. This first round is going to be just touch and go, but it's going to be fast. I mean, another 2 hours, and this will be done. All right, Marion County is now up to 75. Louisville is actually down a degree at 64. So the warm front, again, right there, right through the heart of wave country, where that warm surge of air is ahead of the showers and storms. That's what I'm watching for. Actually, let me do this a different way. Let me put on the radar. And give me a second. And what we'll do, sometimes it's easier to kind of blend the two tools together. All right, now let me add on the temperature on the radar. Okay, is that easier? There you go. You can see, actually, let me kind of go back here in the past hour. Keep an eye on Grayson County there. See, there is a bit of a tightening up of that line. It is trying to power up, but will it be enough? And it will build right into Louisville if it's going to do so. It'll continue to build into Louisville at the same time it's heading due east. So it's getting pushed. At the same time, it's following the warm front, which again is roughly right through here. So you almost have to look at that as kind of a triangle zone like that, at least for now. That's the spot that I'm going to be watching for the lunch hour for maybe some warnings. I'm not saying this is going to be a tornado on the ground here coming up, guys. I'm just saying, as far as any severe potential, this is the first round that can produce warnings. All the parameters are not quite elevated yet. It's 10 in the morning, so that's good, but they are enough to get warning level. But I don't see anything like, wow, there's a big problem here. I don't see anything like that. But I do think it's getting closer to at least warning status, especially for straight line wind and hail. So just be weather aware. If you're near and south of 64 and the parkways here, this is the spot to watch through the lunch hour. But because the way the warm front is, and see how the rain that gets pulled in on the backside, that is going to keep you guys in Indiana mainly showery. So even though the warm front could still pass by your area, you're not seeing as much of a surge. You can see how the numbers ahead of that, where it's dry, or in the 70s. The warm front is past this area in Jasper, but you got so much light rain, your temperature rise is not as dramatic. It's much slower, only a degree or so an hour, versus areas where dry ahead of the front are climbing a few degrees every hour. So that's where that rapid rise in temperature allows for what we call upgrowth in thunderstorms. They grow in height, and we can actually track that too. Let me show you. Hold on. Let's put on a different parameter. All right, let me animate this for the last hour. This is storm tops or heights. What I'm looking for here is when you get into yellows and reds, or yellows, oranges, and reds, that's when we start getting into severe levels on the height of the storm. At the moment, I see greens indicating these are relatively low top. In fact, I can get an idea of how tall they are. Say in Grayson County, the height is 29,000. 29,000 is the radar estimate on the top of the thunderstorm. Typically, you get to about 40,000 and warnings start coming out. Not always, there's a give and take there, but that's usually the rough benchmark is about 40,000. So they're not there yet. That's good, right? So, but the environment is conducive to allow them to continue to grow in this area. So I'm going to be watching this parameter carefully. And once I start seeing a height and getting over 35,000 or 38,000, then we're going to be getting ready for a couple warnings that could come out. And right now, this is moving just slow enough that I think that there's enough warm air here that can get them to severe limits. So we'll be watching that as they move off to the east. But right now, Louisville's right on the edge of this, right on the edge of Louisville. It's going to be a close call. I mean, we've had some showers and storms already today, so that may help a bit. But there at least some potential, and it could be one of those things where southern Jefferson County could see some of those stronger storms, but downtown and across the river in Clarksville and Jeffersonville, you'll be on the tamer side. I mean, it'll be that close for this first round that comes in. As I mentioned before on the satellite, we're watching to see what happens. Back to the west here, you see it's kind of a partly cloudy sky back into Paducah. Now this is rain-cooled air, so it's got to heat up to become unstable. So at the moment, it's not unstable at all. It's actually a very nice morning out there. Everyone's like, oh, this is nice. But unfortunately, they've got a partly cloudy sky, and there's no rain coming in to that area right now. So the new development will just pop on the radar today in this area and then feed east into our region. So this band right now, as we mentioned, is running about an hour, maybe up to 2 hours, a little faster than it was originally planned. You can see some of the thunderstorms again producing that tornado warning right on the tail end of that down south and west of Nashville. Any other questions I can try to answer that I got to run? I know it's a short one today, but I at least wanted to touch base with you all on where we're at. Sorry, I keep losing my connection. Hold on. There's so many of you. You're crashing my system. You're crashing my system, guys. There you are. Hello. I don't know what happened, Angela, but I heard you say amen, sister. So, all right. Nikki, been showering off and on since 5 a.m. in Clarksville. Yeah, it's been a wild morning on that, but nothing severe. Bill, sun coming out potentially energized the atmosphere, giving us more fuel for storms. Yes, that is a concern. Michelle, I got a flight landing here at 12:20. Any chance of a delay? You know, they can actually do quite well at Ollie, especially in landing. But if there's any concern they usually have is going to be just for wind shear, and they have indicators on that on the runway. So if there's any signal for that, they will do not really a go around, but they'll fly and circle a bit before they come in for a landing. But right now, I think they'll be able to approach from Indiana side, and if they come in from the north, they shouldn't have as much of a problem coming into land. If they were coming in from the south, there could have been a delay because they probably would have to fly around this and or wait for it to pass by. But it depends on where the flight's coming from. All right, I got one more question, and then I need to run. Okay, what are the chances of tornadoes? Is there a chance of weakening? Transfer tornado is there. It's not to me, it's not as high as what it was Friday, but it's not zero. I think today the things that are a little different, the straight line wind threat seems a little high today, higher than Friday, and I think the hail potential is going to be a little higher today too. Those are two elements, but they're all elevated. They're all up there. But it's too hard to say if we're going to get anything that would be a repeat of Friday, because that was a supercell, a long tracked supercell. I mean, they just recently found damage. It's EF4 damage there in Laurel County. So you just don't get those events often. I mean, we haven't seen anything like that really since the 2012 West Liberty tornado, and then obviously Henryville. So they don't happen that often. So to get them to that level, that close together in time is very, very rare. Not unheard of, but very rare. But I do think it's certainly a chance to get a tornado today. And I don't think we should discount an EF0 type of tornado damage versus anything higher. No doubt. Obviously, the higher the go, the more it's devastating, and you got to be underground to survive. I get that. But EF0s can still hurt you and cause damage. So you still got to be ready no matter what. All right, let me show you the 10-day real quick, and then I got to get out of here. I keep saying that, and I really mean it this time. I really got to go, because I have to pay attention to what's going on for the next few hours and get everything ready for the show coming up on midday. I'm going to be on midday, so by all means, stay tuned to the forecast for midday. And you know what? I am locked up. Great. All right. Well, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to show you the 10-day. There's so many of you crash my system again. But I love you all. I'm glad you're all here. Is everyone okay? Type 3 if you're okay. Type 3 if you're okay and you understand. I don't want to be confusing. I don't want to scare you guys. I just want you guys to be okay. And we're not going anywhere today. All right. We'll be back on for midday. We have a new newscast. And even if it looks active, but we don't have active warnings right now, but the setup looks like it could turn that way, I will jump back on, okay? I will jump back on after the noon show today and do another stream with you all before we get into the afternoon newscast. I will be here for that. But just be alert and ready, because we may end up being on both the way things are trending. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that. I got to run. Appreciate you guys as always, and I'll see you guys coming up on midday at 11 a.m. All right, take care, everyone. See you soon.